Good evening, everyone. It is just
But yes.
after 6:30, so we will go ahead and get started and call this planning commission meeting to order at 6:31. Let's go ahead and move right into a roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Crosby,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Here.
Commissioner Poulin,
Here.
Commissioner Vincent informed the chair and I that she would not be able to make it tonight. And Commissioner Myram. I do not see him online. And then just so you're aware, Chair, we do have Rebecca online who will be taking minutes for us, and we also have our city attorney on the Zoom call as well.
Thank you, Rebecca and Josh. Let's head to the roll call. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes from last meeting, which would have been in August?
I will move approval of the meetings minutes.
All right, with nothing heard, we will go ahead and count those as approved. All right. I don't see any attendees in the room or online, so I'm just gonna go ahead and skip my next speech for a request from the floor. I was kind of hoping we might have some folks after all the attendance at the last few other city meetings, but here we are. So we'll just go right to you, Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. So I was gonna start with just saying that unless the item tonight is continued, which I anticipate it won't be, but if it was continued, we'd probably have to find a time in December to meet. Otherwise, at this point, we don't have any other items on the agenda to meet in December. I was talking to the chair a couple nights ago, and I think we're gonna try to meet in January most likely. We need to do our assignments for the appointees for the chair and vice chair. And then also I kind of want to have a chance to talk to the commission in a work session setting about goals. Since we're coming up on the biennium and we're going to be setting goals with the city council, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to also talk to the planning commission. Maybe pull out the comprehensive plan, maybe the economic development strategic plan, the TSP. So I would put together a staff report for a work session and kind of start going through all those items and see kind of projects that the commission would like to advance over the next few years. The other opportunity would be to potentially, I'm hoping that gives us enough time to still get it into the council for potential goals that they would consider as well for the budget cycle. So that'd be something we would hopefully be doing in January at our meeting. And then at the January meeting, we'll have 3 new commissioners as well. So I think it would be a good opportunity to kind of onboard them, have that discussion with them and set up kind of the next few years as kind of a work plan for the commission. And then I think the first half of next year, the only thing I know for a fact they'll be coming to at some point in the first half of next year at this time will be Deer Point Park. So there'll be a design review and I think a variance or 2 being requested with that park, or maybe more variances, I'm not sure. Other than that, because of the moratorium, we are processing a lot of type 1 and type 2 land use applications, but as you know, we're not getting many type 3 and type 4 at this time. The report, I did just walk through a few things here, just giving an update on Chipotle, on the Sandy Marketplace redesign, which I will be sharing with the commission by email once I get those renderings in from Keystone Architecture. So I'm planning on sending you guys the renderings and getting input if you have any. But because of the timeline there, the input might have to be done by email and not at a meeting. The coverage structure at Tollgate is finished. I provided a picture there. Cascade Creek Apartments, which is just north of Ormstead Park, that's moving along very quickly. I think they have foundations up for 3 or 4 of the buildings already. And there's a lot of earthwork and utility installation going on. There are a few other subdivisions that are moving forward at this time as well. If you go on Ormstead Road to the east, on the east side of Ormstead Road, right before you get out of the UGB, across from Maple Street, I believe it is, the Barnstead View subdivision's going up pretty quickly. They're doing utility and site work there as well. And then Sandy Woods 2, which is on the north side of town up by Kelso Road. That's going to be moving forward actually pretty soon now. They finally got all their construction plans put together and we'll be holding a pre-con meeting with them, a pre-construction meeting in the next month or two. And then they're planning on moving earth and starting their utility and road installations in the spring. So you'll see that moving along quicker. There's a few other developments that have been kind of really moving along very slowly, as you've probably noticed around town, like the one on DeBarco and Reuben. I was gonna put an update in here on it, but I didn't. They're having financing issues, but I guess they got a new lender or somebody new. And so their new financing set to actually start on January 1st. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll see actual wood framing going up there finally. They do have, I think, foundations for 12 or 14 units actually already in, but they haven't actually moved to the next phase of putting anything actually up. And then as you'll notice, if you drive around town out by Johnson RD, the two phases of that large subdivision out there, they're moving along steadily. I do know that Holt Homes, who owns Timber Grove on the west side, has been having some difficulty with selling homes. So they've kind of put, I think mainly because of interest rates. And so they've kind of put a pause on pulling more permits. But they have about 13, 14 more houses to pull from us still. And then across the street from them, that's being done by 5 or 6 different developers behind Johnson RV. And that's actually moving pretty quick right now. So if you have a chance, all the roads are open. You can drive out there if you'd like. Check them out. And then at the end of my summary, I did provide you the monthly code enforcement update. If you're interested in getting these every month, I could submit them to you every month by email, or you can go on the city website and go to the department reports through the city council agenda. And this is on there every month and it shows the code enforcement update. I'm just giving you them on the corresponding month that I'm coming to you guys. So you're not seeing all these code enforcement updates. But it is interesting. We've been dealing with our code enforcement specialist, Chris Relly, has been dealing with some very interesting cases lately. And we've unfortunately, for his sake, had like 3 or 4 very complicated ones all at once. So we kind of highlighted a few of those on the update here. We don't like to put addresses or anything, even though it's all public record if somebody did a records request. But anyways, you can kind of get a sense of some of the issues he's dealing with, especially when you're declaring buildings dangerous and boarding them up. That's not something we do every day here at the city. That's like something we might do like once every 5 to 8 years, typically. And then the last thing I wanted to say before I turn it back over to you, Darren, is I just want to say thank you to the commissioners that have been serving us the last few years. I know that Commissioner Vincent is not planning on coming back onto the commission. She did not reapply. I think she might be moving out of the area within a few years, so she has decided not to reapply. Mr. Myram, I would like to say thank you to him as well for being on the commission. And then I would like to say thanks to Commissioner Ramsayer, and I want to congratulate you on your appointment to City Council.
Thank you.
I know that it's not finalized until I think December 2nd, but based on the latest, there's quite a bit of distance between you and the other person, so I'd like to congratulate you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been great on the commission.
Thank you.
And then Commissioner Lee's term is also ending. However, as part of this update, I want to let you know, we met last Thursday. It was Mayor Poliam, City Councilors Mayton and Walker, and then Chair Wagner. The 4 of them met with 9 different people, actually.
Wow.
We had a lot of interest.
Oh, my goodness.
And actually, I'll say all 9 candidates were really good candidates. Like it was the most impressive applicant pool I've seen since I've been here. So they had some tough decisions. They deliberated for probably 30 minutes and they came down to their appointment recommendations, which will be received and reviewed by council on December 2nd, so it's not official yet. But the selection was Commissioner Lee, so congratulations. And then Linda Malone, Art O'Leary, and Brandon Zawowski. Did I
I
pronounce
think
this?
that's it.
I think that's it. I think I got it right on the first try. So that's gonna be the 4 people that they're affording for the 3 terms that are expiring, and then Commissioner Ramsayer's term. So, and I know that was kind of a long department report, but that's my report for you.
Thank you, Kelly. And with that, I would also like to extend my thanks and gratitude to those who have served on commission these past few years who won't be continuing on with this. And again, congratulations to both Commissioner Ramsayer and Commissioner Lee for hopefully a reappointment with city council confirmation, but also was elected in this recent election to a different position outside of the commission. So congratulations to you as well. Yeah, and I'll just echo what you were saying, Kelly, about the interviews. I don't think I had a bad answer to a single question. They were all fantastic candidates, and I think it was truly tough for us to kind of pick between them. And if they don't work out, we have lots of fantastic folks to draw from. So I'm super happy about that, and I am looking forward to some robust discussion come the first of the year. And then I don't see Councilor Mayton is there. Wonderful. I will turn it over to him in case he has any updates that he wants to share.
Oh, no, thank you, Chair. I don't want to repeat what was already said, but thanks for allowing me to be part of that interview poll. I want to say thank you to the counselors that were. Congratulations to your victory. Ms. Rensayer for City Council. Can't wait to be working with you there. But as Kelly stated, and we had a lot of great people apply, and we picked the best that we could with a broad selection of knowledge in industry and knowledge of the city, and also newness. So I think we get a bit of a diverse background to help balance out the commission there. But other than that, that's all I got.
Excellent, thank you. And anybody else have anything that they want to add before we get into the rest of the agenda? All right, let's go ahead and looks like we got just new business today. So we'll go ahead and move on to our public hearing, which is going to be opening land use file number 24-055ZC. This is going to be the Sandy Transit Operations Center rezoning. All right. Let's see here. This is a public hearing, and as we don't have anybody in attendance yet, I will just say that if folks do show up, we will call for testimony in 3 groups: testimony in favor, testimony opposed, and then neutral testimony. And we'll go over those directions at the time. With that, Kelly, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, and I'll quickly turn it over to Patrick on the left.
So, or can we get the,
Yeah, we're having technical difficulties. So I'm trying to help Patrick out here.
Well, while you're doing that, I will go ahead and do the step that I forgot, which is call for any abstentions from the hearing body. I don't think there are any, but I better go through that formality here. Any conflicts of interest? All right. And finally, any ex parte contact?
I did have one colleague who lives in the notification zone, just said, "What's this about?" And I just explained to them what was happening. They had gotten the notice and didn't know what was happening.
All right. Awesome. All right. And so I'll just say that if you do testify, you must raise all issues you wish to address at this hearing. If your issue is not raised at this hearing, you may not be able to raise it at a later appeal. Your comment should state why the application should or should not be approved, or include your proposed modifications you believe are necessary for approval according to the standards. If you do not raise specific issues at the final evidentiary hearing or by the close of the record, or fail to provide statements of evidence to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal the decision to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that particular issue. Any party may request that the hearing be continued to a later date or that the record remain open after the hearing is closed. All right, failure to the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Now we'll go to you guys.
Thank you, Darren.
So, I put together a little, PowerPoint. Are you guys seeing that on your screen? Okay,
Yes.
you are, okay. So this is just, a little bit more background into the applicant's request. Maybe clarify a little bit, maybe put a little more things in general, but maybe dial down on a couple other things that aren't in the report. The first thing, the Sandy Transit Operational Center zone change, where the applicant is requesting to change their zoning district from I-1 to I-2, which I-1 is industrial park, I-2 is light industrial. For those who aren't familiar with the location, it's essentially in the Public Works headquarters along Champion Way. Not sure how many people, but down there it's actually pretty well screened from the general public. And the signs are small, so it might not be that evident to people, but it's down almost to the end of Champion Way. It's kind of across from the cinema. It's across from Champion Village. I'll go back real quick and just wanted to point out I don't have my mouse to show, but you see where the site is outlined. The piece that's,
I'll be happy to point at it if you'd like.
yeah, I just wanted to point out that the piece, it may have not been mentioned in the staff report, but the piece just to the south of the identified site there is actually also owned by the city of Sandy. And is designated for future growth of public works when needed. So the next slide just shows essentially the zoning, the surrounding zoning, the subject site. You can see that the piece that I just pointed to for the future expansion is already zone light industrial. The sites further east are also light industrial, and the sites to the kind of like the northeast are also. So other than what's just north, where the cinema is and those kind of multi-tenant developments, it is surrounded by light industrial. So I want to go 2 slides up first, and then I'll go back.
Show me which one you're looking at.
Oh, no, actually, I'll just go here.
Okay.
So just get into a little bit more specifics on the Sandy Transit Operational Center. Again, as the applicants, the Sandy Transit Operational Center and the Public Works facility, they're defined as for their use as a major public facility. And they're both considered conditional uses in both the I-1 and the I-2 district. And the reason why we wanted to point that out is just that there's not going to be any, there's not any more intense use that would be derived from it going from one district to the next. They're both described the same in either district. But also on the next one, I'm not sure if we pointed this, I think it may have pointed this out. The original design for the Public Works headquarters or in the transit center operation was approved in 2006. I believe it was built in 2008 or 2009 as part of a master plan development. And the use had actually additional buildings, growth, outgrowth, parking, additional bays and additional buildings as needed. So some of what is going to follow this zone change was going to be a design review for the new building for the expansion of the Transit Operation Center as described in the staff report. But it won't be something that will come back to you as a conditional use, as typically they would, because it was what we're looking at reviewing it as part of that overall master plan that was already incorporated into that original approval. The I-2 district, typically suitable for manufacturing, warehousing, business, or other industrial uses, is not really highly dependable on high visibility, or is more of a destination place. It's not open to the public. It's actually a secure location. Whereas the I-1, the industrial park, is kind of designed for that high visibility. Typically sited like off arterial roads or highways to get visibility. And that's where we feel like historically where this use is going, it probably should have always been is an I-2, because it's not typically someplace where the general public goes to and visits. And for those who know how the comprehensive plan kind of mirrors the zoning map in the sense of uses, although the zoning map has different degrees of zoning for specific categories such as commercial, industrial. There's no zone change would not be required, or this zone change does not require a comprehensive plan change, because all three industrial zones are categorized as industrial. So to dial down a little bit more on the higher visibility use for the industrial park, the I-1, you can see the uses on the right there. There are more commercial uses. They tend to need the visibility, customers for customer visits, for location. Whereas what you're seeing on the left is the Public Works and Transit Operations Center's headquarters. And it's kind of got that industrial look. It's closed off, it's secure. It more likely belongs in the I-2 for what it's being used for. Yeah. And this is something I don't believe was in the staff report, but the Transit Master Plan of 2020 actually has this use, or this expansion was one of its policies or goals. And it's basically policy 3, increase service as the number of residents and jobs in Sandy grow. That's kind of an obvious thing, but in action 3.1, it dials down into design and construct an operator break room, training room, expanded restroom, evaluate the need for additional space for administrative staff. And that's really what it's going to be. If you go to the next slide, this is going to be the new building that's going to go in the kind of in the center of their site, where it was just pointed out. And their intended use is administrative offices, conference rooms, break rooms, storage areas, and 2 large maintenance bays. So they're kind of fulfilling their goal, their policy, and then their action plan to follow through with what is needed, and actually to better service people city of Sandy, kind of keep up with the growth. So this next slide is really just going to kind of go over again a little bit of what's already in the staff report. Hopefully you've read through that and understand it. If probably anywhere, that's probably where you'd have some of the questions. There's really, we just follow the review criteria outlined in chapter 1726 zoning district amendments. So going down from subsection B1, determine if the effects of the city facilities effects on the city facilities and services. And just did a simple finding, speaking with public works directors and employees, as well as Andy here. The proposed zone change should not negatively impact public facilities or create any service capacity shortfalls. So essentially that infrastructure has already been pre-designed for any type of future expansions. Should be so that criteria has been met. That section, also the number 2, requires that the city assure consistency with the purposes of this chapter. And essentially that is just that we followed the requirements earlier in the chapter where it talks about notification and review criteria and other procedural type requirements. So we just kind of went through the series of steps in the review process that they're followed, maintained that integrity of that. So in the staff report, my findings basically address the adequate public involvement through noticing affected property owners, which probably that's where you got some people asking you questions about what's going on here. The staff evaluation, the staff report that's already been done, the action of the hearing body, which is going to be both hearings here and then eventually at the city council, and that the zone change is not changing the comprehensive plan map designation for industrial, as that decision can be made. So we don't have to, there's not an extra step where we're having to amend the comprehensive plan. And then these next two are number 3 requires the city to assure consistency with the policies of the comprehensive plan. This was actually one that was pretty easy, probably found every one of these goals and policies within 5 minutes because we had just completed the comprehensive plan. So they were all like fresh in your head. Pretty easy to go to and pick out. They all support the expansion of these type of facilities to serve the city of Sandy, both just kind of conveniently, economically, and support the businesses of the city, get people where they need to go, whether it be doctor's appointments. So a lot of the policies, goals and policies lined up exactly with what their goal is for expansion and growing their transit operation. And then number 4 requires the city to assure the consistency with the statewide planning goals. This one I always find pretty easy too. Planning goals are pretty simple. But again, going just through the comprehensive plan amendment that we just went through, all of that has to be based on the statewide planning goals. That is, our directive is that they all have to fall back into what the planning goal is, which they do. And so the policies, again, come directly from not every goal, but the goals that I had outlined: citizen involvement, talking about holding public hearings and notification. Goals 2, just kind of making sure that there's a factual basis for what we're looking at as far as the criteria and what we're talking about right now. Economy, I wrote these long paragraphs, but basically I'm just kind of pulling out a certain sentence or two. The subject zone change is part of a larger blueprint of design and efficiency to increase the city of Sandy's economic base. Scheduled fixed routes are supported with a demand response service from door-to-door trips. So again, we're looking at what is in support of Goal 9 economy. And then obviously Goal 12 transportation, where the proposed zone change will strengthen the transit department's goals for transportation system plan to minimize adverse social, economic, and environmental impacts and costs, as well as meet the needs of the transportation disadvantage and improving transportation services. So in our determination, all the criteria is met. And that is truly what we should be looking at. I mean, we gave you a lot of background and kind of maybe historical. There's a historical pattern of what the rezoning is. Some of you could probably remember that we just recently rezoned, I think it was three years ago. Road fabrication property that is just to the north of Public Works, although nothing's been built yet. But that historic pattern, again, that was good for a business that similar to this probably won't have the day-to-day or the general public accessing their use. And then just to kind of finish up or touch base on the ending of the staff report, because that zone change was a little bit more visible and actually, well, it hasn't been built yet, but it actually had a little bit more exposure than this Public Works headquarters. And if you've driven by that, if you drove by it because of what we're looking at this tonight, you can see how well it's screened and how well it's kind of hidden, the more intense part of the use in the back, and having some of the buildings that are facing up front actually having a good appearance. But what we wanted to do is just kind of stay consistent, and there was 4 basic conditions that we had put on the road fabrication, and we just kind of continued them down here. I won't read them out, but that's the reason for that. And again, staff believes that we've met all of the criteria. We believe that we have factual base to move forward, bring this to you for a decision or a recommendation to City Council. That's it.
So thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. That was a lot. So, I thank you, Chair and Commissioners, first for giving us the opportunity to bring this in front of you. I am the transit director. I started building bus barns that are in the very bottom corner of this photo with the transit master plan. They were also part of the master plan, and it was during that construction process in 2019 and 2020 that I became aware of the zones and the differences in zones, especially as we went through the parts of building these that were about what the public can see from the street, how well screened the facility is. A lot of these buildings that I am designing or constructing over my watch are in more of the center and the back of the property. And so the screening is already there. As he mentioned, if you drive by the operations center, it's a beautiful facility. In my opinion, it's the landscaping is beautiful, represents the city of Sandy well, and it's also very hidden. So a lot of what we do inside, the bus wash, for example, is in the middle, and this building will be constructed right next to the bus wash, but it's really hard to see from the street, and we're not building any new streets. The city has expanded, as you are very aware. And so one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is this is a very collaborative project. So transit was awarded funding through a grant process for the design of this project. But the goal of this project was to meet transit's needs that are outlined in my transit master plan of maintenance. And this was in the master plan as a maintenance bay. We have added office space to it because the city is in need of office space. Every department, Public Works needs office space. They need places to put people. Parks and Recreation is also in this building. Police have storage in this building, or in this facility, I should say. And so we looked at the entire master plan and with a team that we have hired, we've kind of tried to put it all in one building and hope that we can get funding to give the city more growth potential in the future.
All right, that moves us on to public testimony, of which I have not seen anybody, so if somebody's hiding, please let me know. Kelly and staff recap for you guys.
I would just say, I think this sounds like a great opportunity and needed opportunity for the city. Again, this step is not really focused on the building itself and the uses, although we wanted to provide that background for you. It's more essentially saying that the zone change from industrial park to light industrial is more appropriate for this type of use, as well as probably the historic pattern that's already kind of in that area on that east side of Champion Way. And I would say just clearly look at the criteria. Did we meet the criteria requirements for the zone change specifically? And if we do, I would please, if you guys move this thing forward to city council.
And I'd only add two things to what's already been said. One of which is what Patrick already touched upon is we want to make this, any proposal that the city's making or moving forward with, we want it to be consistent with what private developers have had conditioned on them. So I think that's a very important consideration, is the conditions that Patrick mentioned that were put on road application to have similar conditions put on the city itself if the zone change is approved. And then the other thing is, the second part of that is what both Andy and Patrick both spoke to, is that because this building is internal to the site and some of the other transit buildings that Andy will be moving forward with in the future internal to the site as well, we don't, and I don't personally think they need to be fully robust Sandy style designed buildings, especially if they're maintenance bays and basically areas for buses to park in or be worked on. I'd rather that money that Andy and her team are very good at acquiring from the federal government to go to actually providing transit service. That being said, with the conditions that we're recommending, if buildings in the future that are built either by Andy or by the Public Works Department or anybody else on that site, if they're around the edges of the property, they would still have to be designed in a similar fashion to what's currently out there. So we have a cohesive look and they would be a little bit more robustly built to the Sandy style idea than the internal buildings. And then the last thing I was going to point out, just for the record, so that we have this, is that Patrick's 100% correct. We're just looking at the zone change, not the building. So please keep that in mind. But I did want to point out, since we talked about the building a little bit, is that when that goes forward with construction, we'll be working closely with our city attorney and within the parameters of the moratorium to make sure that we're treating a city project just like any other project. And so for that project to move forward, we'll probably actually have to trade one or two. It's not going to be many because it's a really low water user, but one or two ERUs from one of our other sites to this site to accommodate the use. So I just want that on the record and just want to make sure, in case anybody watches this later on, that we're going to treat it just like any private development out there.
All right. Is there anything you would like to rebut
No, thank you.
Excellent. That moves us on to discussion or if we want to close the public hearing, we can do that as well.
I just have a question for Andy.
Yeah.
Andy, I think I read someplace that instead of contracting out the mechanical work, you would be doing that yourself now. Would that be in the new building?
Yes, thank you. That is one of the purposes of this building is we currently rely on third-party vendors for all of our maintenance, which can be difficult at times to find good diesel mechanics who don't have a long line of other customers. And so one of the goals of this project is to make us more sustainable by bringing maintenance in-house, and that would be for the entire city fleet, not just transit, but for the city's fleet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then just for my own clarification, so essentially we approved the land use change for that parcel you mentioned just north of to I-2, so that way they could build their type of building. Since this type is essentially already, I mean, this land use has already been approved for this site. Basically, the only reason to change it to I-2 is for that design piece, right? Since everything's already been approved.
That's
Right.
correct. Yeah.
So it would just allow us to have different design standards when we come that curve. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it's basically allowing Andy and her team and other potential maintenance or storage bays internal to the site to have a more basic design
Right.
to save a lot of money, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Which I am down for. I'm always for good use of public
I was
funds.
just say, I was looking today too, how the I-1, the C2 is linked to the I-1 in the design standards. And it's actually 20 pages long. And then you flip over to the I-2 in the design standards, a page and a half. So it's really the I-1, as you can see in the one picture where the smoky earth is and the bakery and that, in other more commercially, uses, they're more geared towards that Sandy style and have a lot more requirements. And a lot of those requirements look at pedestrian access points and civic plazas and stuff like that. Stuff where you're actually having the general public attend and use. Whereas in this case, it being the public works place and being a secure yard, there's no need for any of that because it's not open to the public.
Right.
So.
And so I'm super happy to see that the design features for the visible in the future is in that condition. My second question kind of around that is approved in 2006. So we're coming up on 20 years nearly. At what point does that approval kind of say, hey, you know what, things have changed and maybe we need to come back and look at it again? I mean, what's that line that we stop and say, hey?
I mean, we'd have to take a closer look at what was approved, but I don't think there was a timeline set for the different phases of the project.
Okay.
I think it would come back before the commission. I believe this would be the case. If they did a large modification
Okay.
to what was approved back in 2006, then they would be doing a modification to their conditional use permit approval, which I think if it's a large enough modification, then it triggers essentially a new conditional use permit, and then that would be re-reviewed by the commission. If it's like a real small, something real small in there, it would probably just be a staff level
Okay.
review.
I'm just, nothing for this one, but I'm thinking other things that we might be approving soon. 362nd and Bell, they throw something in there and then we're stuck with it for 20 years, whatever, if they don't do anything or, residential or whatever. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good thing to start thinking about for that very scenario.
Sorry, Andy, and finally, my final comment again has nothing to do with this, but I was reading through, I thought I saw that, self-storage was still listed there as an outright usage for both I-1 and I-2. I thought we moved that out.
It was removed from I1 or I'm sorry, C1 and C2.
C1 and C2. Okay, so
Yeah.
we still have it in the industrial.
Correct. I would have to go back and look at that ordinance to see exactly where we removed it from.
Okay,
But I do recall we removed it from all the commercial zones.
okay. So we got it out of 362nd on Bell, but
Correct.
okay.
And out of like downtown and,
Okay.
you know, behind like Les Schwab and.
Yeah, I just thought,
Yeah,
I thought there was something about that the new one over there by Tractor Supply wouldn't have been approved had whatever we approved gone into play beforehand.
I kind of remember that conversation too. We'll look into that and get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
I just, the one comment I had was that I think it's important in the findings that we stress the things that were just most recently mentioned. What is gained by the zone change, and not the saving of money. Because everybody wants to save money. And we hear it all the time right here. And for us to make a decision so that the applicant can save money and have that be highlighted more than what I think is the more important issue is what it affords in the design changes within an existing facility. That I think that's a stronger argument that we have for the zone change. I mean, I'm all for it, but I just when we start saying, when I hear the city saying we want to do this to save money, I just hear the public saying, well, I said that too, and you said you couldn't make a decision based on whether or not I saved money. So I just caution us in our findings to not raise that too high.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good point. I would say though, as Patrick pointed out, I think it is distinctly different though. And that is like Joey's case, for example, with road fabrication. He's not gonna have the public coming to his site. And so you can have the robust landscaping, some minimal design element on the outside, but then everything else is probably gonna be fenced and internal to the site, which is actually very similar to the public works yard. There's like,
Right.
there's a small area that's accessible to the public, but 95% of the site is not. And I think sometimes when we get the zone change requests, there's a few I'm thinking of, but I'm not gonna say names. The uses on the site were all gonna be public uses. They weren't gonna be like a factory with no public access. So I do think. I think you make a very compelling, good point. I would just say that I think sometimes when we get the zone change requests or that argument to save money, it's like, I want to build a retail establishment and have no design.
Yeah.
Or I want to build a gas station and build it with absolutely no design detail, even though all it's serving is the public.
Right, and I understand that.
For me, because I always had the same kind of thought as you as I was reading through all of this. And it wasn't until I got to the conditions about the outside areas having to have that same appearance as what's currently there. That
That's
kind of
important.
it made a big deal for me, yeah.
Yeah, tying it to the previous zone change.
Yeah,
It's more a matter of and yes, you will be saving money. But that's not what's driving us in making the decision.
right.
It's a benefit offshoot.
Well, through the chair, I did not mention that purposely in the staff report. I know it's been verbally said here and that kind of discussed because some of it is part of that reality. But I think as Andy and Kelly had kind of gave the reasons why, but no, there's nothing in the findings of the criteria that brings that up. So focusing specifically on the findings or agreeing with the findings that I had laid out, I think is where you need to kind of hang your hat on.
For sure. These are just questions that I know
Yeah.
other folks would want to ask and have answers to, for sure.
Yeah, I would say, if I can say one more thing on that subject matter. I would say that we did actually, in the very recent past, listen to the public. And you'll all recall this, we were getting quite a few variance requests for the I2 zone. We did it like US Metals, we did it, there was like 3 or 4 sites, I can't remember them all. But we basically were just approving everything because it all made sense. And then what we did out of that was we went into the I2 design standards and we modified them pretty significantly just recently. And that's what Patrick was saying. We really cut it down to be reflective of industrial sites and what they need is for design. So I just want to point out that I think we have listened to the public, and in cases where the building is not really that accessible to the public, we did recently change the design standards for that zone.
If Christina doesn't have any comment, I will close the public hearing and I will motion to close the public hearing. And then I think Christina should make the final, her final motion.
Well, let's do this. So we have a motion to close the public hearing. Let's get a
Yes, I
second
so-
on that
I
one
so
first.
moved.
I'll second.
We have a second for Commissioner Lee. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed? All right, public hearing's closed. This is where we're all gonna turn and look at you.
Oh, good. Okay. I move that the findings as presented in the staff report dated November 15th, 2024 shall be adopted, including the conditions in finding number 20. And the planning commission recommend approving file number 24-055 ZC to city council to amend the zoning map from industrial park 1-I-1 to light industrial I-2.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Ramsayer, a second from Commissioner Crosby. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
very much.
Yay.
You only have to do it one more time.
All right, and with that, concludes our agenda items for tonight. So we will go ahead and close tonight's meeting, 7:22. Thank you all very much.